Making statements on biodiversity in Ireland is a bit like that time when Ghandi was asked about Western civilisation and he retorted, "I think it would be a good idea." Well, biodiversity in Ireland would be a good idea if we followed through. And I do welcome the €2.9 million funding announcement to local authorities for biodiversity projects under the National Parks and Wildlife Service, Local Biodiversity Action Fund 2025. There's been great work done in my own county of South Dublin, for example. Although we did plant a pocket forest a few months ago, which, much to the dismay of Lucan Tidy Towns and all the volunteers, myself included, after hours of diligent work, has now been torn to shreds and cut down for a cycle path because SDCC didn't communicate with one another. Bureaucratic ineptitude at its finest, and someone needs to be called out. But on the whole, there have been some good projects. Other pocket forests, for example, the Dublin Urban Rivers LIFE project, for example. But if you pardon the pun, when all these are taken together on a national level, unfortunately, it's a drop in our dying ocean. Social Justice Ireland estimates that 56% of native plant species have declined in range and abundance, with grassland plants suffering the most. 85% of EU protected habitats in Ireland are in an unfavourable state. 46% of them are showing ongoing declines. Yes, biodiversity would be a good idea. And this week we heard the news that Our Lady's Island Lake in County Wexford is experiencing severe pollution, primarily due to excessive nutrient runoff from agricultural activities. This has resulted in harmful algal blooms, fish kills and the general degradation of the lake's ecosystem. The lake, of course, is a special protection area and a special area of conservation, but it's struggling to recover from the negative impact of ongoing nutrient over-enrichment. And this is just one example on the whole island of Ireland. We have the dead lake Lough Neagh up the north and dying and endangered lakes in the south, such as Lough Corrib, Lough Mask, Lough Corra, Lough Sheelin, Lough Derivara, Lough Ennell, Lough Colán, Lough Arrow, Ballyquirk Lough, Ballyextra Lough, Lough Bain, Bleach Lough, etc., as referenced by the National Parks and Wildlife Services. And what do all these lakes have in common? Agricultural runoff, basically animal excrement spread excessively over land that is leaching into our waterways and causing havoc. In Ireland, agricultural practices negatively impact over 70% of our habitats. So we can talk all we want about our commitment to biodiversity and point to the Nitrates Action Programme and good agricultural practices regulations that aim to limit fertiliser application, yet we still seek derogations on the Nitrates Directive. Make me ecologically chaste, O Lord, but not yet. Yes, biodiversity would be a good idea. We're a bunch of hypocrites, and it's basically to flog more beef and dairy abroad when we should be encouraging the reduction in animal agriculture to reduce greenhouse emissions. And that's before we even touch animal welfare issues. We won't meet anywhere near the EU organic food targets, even though these sectors pay a premium. We should be promoting organic food as the norm, Minister, subsidised where it doesn't meet affordability thresholds, and encouraging a major reduction in meat and dairy consumption. So why aren't we setting an example? As an aside, it is a pity that there isn't more vegan and vegetarian food in the Dail restaurant for all the staff. But I must say, they do a lovely vegan breakfast, albeit a fry-up, so maybe the Minister should try it sometime and promote meat reduction for climate and biodiversity enhancement, as opposed to pandering to lobby groups that don't have a leg to stand on, let alone 4 legs. We need to support our small farmers, though, especially, and farming communities way more in diversifying and providing them with real incomes and real potential from enhancing our environment, planting renewable Irish forests, diversification as custodians of our environment. They have been doing a great job over many centuries, but we have that issue with the water leaching. And they're not going to change the habits of generations without support and encouragement. Rural communities could thrive once again, and our rivers and lakes could be clean, but the government needs to make it happen rather than stand in the way. And as well as spreading nitrates, you have overgrazing, undergrazing, unsustainable peat extraction, although I do love the smell of a turf fire no more than anyone else, the introduction of invasive species and overfishing. But let's be balanced. Residential and industrial development also plays its part. Its impact on climate change affects biodiversity. Building on floodplains has a knock-on effect. Air and water pollution from these sources destroys our ecosystem and needs to be tackled. So we've got this big national biodiversity action plan that doesn't look like it's going to meet its targets. And I've read through it. It has a puffin on the front cover, Birdwatch Ireland reported a 28% decline in Ireland's puffin population since the turn of this century alone, making them a red-listed bird of conservation concern. So we need to take biodiversity seriously, but we don't. We pay lip service, we pat ourselves on the back for the many laudable micro-projects, which I do praise. I'm not saying nothing's been done, but not enough has been done, because in terms of the big picture, we consistently fail to take action. So yes, biodiversity would be a good idea.